Hi there again, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Gary Neville Podcast. We're speaking from Old Trafford, where, as broadcasters, we've probably had quite a taxing day describing Manchester United 1, Leicester City 1. Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was like one of the COVID matches, wasn't it? I got announced that I was playing in Soccer Aid this week, and I thought I was watching it first half. It wasn't good. When the teams came through, Martin, sometimes we're sat up here thinking about formations, who's going to play where, but we couldn't quite work out what Manchester United were going to do.
We couldn't think that they were going to play the same way as they did at Manchester City,
No.
where we were there as well, but it did, in the end, turn out like that.
Yeah, we worked out pretty quickly that it was the same front six that played at Manchester City. And we thought, well, they can't play that again because that didn't work at City. I mean, obviously Leicester are a different team. But just the whole idea behind it, having no sort of penetration, no running in behind. And then you think, well, OK, Sancho and Elanga will play more narrow as split strikers, but they didn't. They played outside the full-back, so they were very wide, and it left Pogba and Fernandes acting as dummy centre-forwards. It was a struggle, that was a big struggle. I was expecting Manchester United today before the game to come and win this game and put pressure on the teams that are going to go for that top four. Arsenal, obviously Tottenham, they're way off it. They're absolutely way off it at this moment in time. We didn't have an idea what they were going to do before the game, but the bigger worry was that the players didn't have an idea what they were doing. And that's been the same all season. And I said during the game, I think we've been so fortunate this season with the amount of quality games that we've seen. And from top to bottom, barring Norwich, every team you look at, you think, they know what they're doing, they're well organised, there's no easy game. It's a really tough Premier League, this. But this Manchester United team, for what they've had spent on it all season, they haven't got a clear idea. They haven't got a clear, talk about philosophy. I know it's a bit of a buzzword and has been for a number of years now. But every team that you watch, you have a clear idea of what they're trying to do in possession and out of possession. Manchester United are not a pressing team. They're actually depressing when you watch them out of possession because they just walk around. For about 20 minutes in that second half, up until Ian Achel scored that goal, he fouled Varane. They were walking around the pitch, Manchester United, watching Leicester pass. And Leicester deserved to win that game, to be fair, today. Manchester United didn't deserve a draw. They got one, which is a point, but I'm really disappointed. I have been all season, but there was further evidence of it. I thought after the international break, the run-in, the sprint, you'd just see them fully focused. They're out of Europe, they're out of every other competition. Go for that fourth place. There's some big games to come. Liverpool, Chelsea,
lack
Arsenal.
of hunger, Gary. That's what I mean.
Lack of hunger, lack of idea.
Lack of confidence, maybe, because we must not sort of look at it in they're not supermen and things are going badly. They're obviously getting a lot of stick at the moment, but they didn't play as if there was something to grasp from this winning this game.
The clouds are circling above, and most of them have got rain in them, and they're black. It's not a good time. They need to get to the end of the season. I mean, I've watched that today and think this team need to get to the end of the season. I don't think they'll finish fourth. They'll get pulled apart by Liverpool at Anfield on the 19th. It's a couple of weeks away. If they play anything like that. Rashford being on the bench, I don't think he deserved to play every game this season. I think that he's in poor form, but that was an absolute killer for him today. To not be on the pitch, to not be a centre forward. He's been training for 2 weeks. He's been back in Manchester, not picked for England. Ordinarily, you would think that Manchester United as a club would try and lift him and pick him up. But to have him on the bench today and sort of have none of the other strikers available that were available at the start of the season, it's so surprising. And then to see how Manchester United played, they were toothless. You mentioned hunger. The problem is with hunger comes from a lack of idea, a lack of confidence, and then you think, well, they don't care. But I think they do care, players. I mean, I don't have this theory that Manchester United's players don't care. I think they do care because we've seen them over the last 2 years. At times...
players like Fred care, don't they?
Yeah. And I think all of them do. They're just drained. And I think what's happened is the interview process has started for Ten Hag. They've got a manager who knows he's not going to be here next season and doesn't know whether he's going to be here in the other role that they've offered him. You've got a number of players who don't know whether they're going to be here next season or do know they're not going to be here. And you've got a lot of indecision and uncertainty and a lot of what would be people looking left and right. You need everybody in the dressing room to have blinkers on, everybody in the club to have blinkers on. That's our goal. That's the way we're facing. But they're all looking left and right thinking, where's my next move? Is he going to be here next year? The manager's not going to be here, so I better look at what's happening. And it's, we've got the Maguire situation coming out of England this week, even though I thought he did okay today. You've got the Rashford situation, the Cristiano situation, the Cavani situation, the Pogba situation, the Ranić situation. You've got so many live things happening. And they just need to get to a point whereby basically football stops and that they can reset and they can get a new manager into the club. But that isn't going to just be the answer. This has been going on for a long time now, this type of feeling. And I feel quite low today, not in an angry way. There's times in the past where I felt angry. I feel quite low tonight having watched that performance because I feel as though another season has just drifted away. And it's been poor all season. Before Ralph Rangnick, it was terrible. Other than Solskjaer, couldn't get anything out of these players. Ralph Rangnick's struggling to get performances out of them now.
You've come up with your 5-point plan, which is on a wider basis, really aimed at the ownership as well. We didn't talk about that during the game, but
no.
Do you think now, having seen that game, that it's even more relevant?
Yeah, I came up with that 5-point plan because if the Glazers are not going to sell, which I suspect they're not, which I think would be the probably priority of every Manchester United fan, and I think me now as well, I think for 10 years they've had the chance to prove that they can operate this football club well beyond Sir Alex Ferguson's years, and they're not doing it very well. That you've got to have a cultural reset, and where does that cultural reset come from? It comes from the very top. You can put a new CEO in place, you can put a new manager in place, but if the message coming from, if the owners are taking... If the owners aren't building the new stadium, if the owners aren't giving the clear vision that we're the best, that we're an elite, exceptional football club operating at the highest level, then that just drifts right the way down to the very bottom, to the players on the pitch and the staff in the club. And the reality is, this is a great football club. This is a great football club. And there could be very good people in this football club. There are very good people in this football club. But if the message from the top is not strong, it's not clear, and you can't do it remotely. You can't do it remotely. You can't run this football club by Zoom. And they've been running it by Zoom for 10 years, before Zoom even came in. And you've got to communicate properly. You've got to know that people are there. This club has not got a clear voice. Who is the voice of this football club? When you think about it now, who do we want to hear from? The captain's struggling a little bit at this moment in time, even though I've got long-term faith in him, actually. I think he'll be a player for Manchester United into the future. I think the new manager, whoever it is, Pochettino, Ten Hag, will want Harry Maguire at the club. Ralph Rangnick at this moment in time, he's undermined by the fact he's only here for a few more months. The CEO's just getting his feet under the table. Ed Woodward left and didn't have a voice for the club. Joel Glazer said he's going to communicate with the fans. We never hear from him. So we've got no clear voice at the club of fans. Who's driving it forward? And there's got to be obviously an element of time. But, you need big change. And the clearest change would be to put those 5 things in place. We're going to stop taking the yearly money out of the club. We're going to pay the debt off and stop paying the interest every single year, which saps, obviously, the investment into players. Even though they do invest into players, it takes away from it. And we're going to give fan ownership. We're then going to build a brand new training ground that's world-class, that's competitive with the other great training grounds that have been built all over Europe and in this country. We've then got Old Trafford. It looks fantastic on the face of it. It looks wonderful, but it's falling apart, and it needs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds spending on it. And it needs... Manchester United have always had one of the great stadiums in the world, but if they're not careful, in the next 5 or 10 years, this stadium will become not just second-rate, but third-rate. And then you've got to think about the sporting plan, the football plan, the sporting project, and you've got to have a clear plan of what you're going to do. And we've got to see more energy out on that pitch than we've seen today. But that energy goes right the way through to the top of the club, and that's why I made that 5-point sort of plan public. I've said it privately for some time, that I think that's the thing that you need to do, because I always think what would really make a big difference if the Glazers were to continue at this club and they were then to be supported by the fans, not supported, but that the fans could see at least there is a demonstrable change. Making a statement straight after Super League, when you've tried to rip the heart out of English football, that you're going to communicate with fans a little bit more, listen to their voice, that's not what they want to hear. They don't want to hear your voice, actually. They don't want to hear your voice. They want action, clear action. So, I'm not going to mention it again. I don't need to. I think I've been very clear on it, and I'm saying it to you here now. But I think at this moment in time, it feels like a really, really difficult time. And, I'm
time to draw a line in the sand.
Yeah, and I'm sat here as an ex-player, and it can feel like I'm wading in. I don't want to wade into Manchester United. I want to be able to celebrate Manchester United. I want to see a great football team, a great football club. Those fans in that first half today that have come here, 74,000 of them, well, 71 because there's 3,000 Leicester fans, were bored. They were bored. I always say you can win, you can lose, you can draw, but never be bored in this ground. This is a place where you walk up that concourse as a young boy and you feel magic. They're not feeling that magic at this moment in time, and neither are the players on the pitch. And there's some really good players out there that I've got a lot of faith in. I've just got somebody talking in my ear. I don't know who it is. There we go, it's gone off.
But they are suffering in comparison to Liverpool and Manchester City, who both got the job done today. Liverpool went top for an hour or two, and Manchester City replied as one expects that they would reply, because they are at the right end of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I watched Liverpool. Gomez plays right back. He has Mane on the bench, Diaz on the bench. Doesn't play Fabinho, brings him on later on in the game. So he's clever, Jurgen Klopp. He's got Benfica twice. He's got Manchester City twice. Massive games coming up. And he's starting to put a plan in place. But he's got such a strong squad. Great firepower. And I thought it might be a little bit awkward, actually, for City this afternoon. But they've responded well. Liverpool didn't work brilliant, but they got the job done. Watford, actually, to be fair, were very organised and actually put up a good show. And maybe could get out of trouble. But Liverpool and City are exceptional teams, and they're able to fall below their best and get the job done and do it comfortably, because they've got authority and they've got strength right the way through the club. The managers in particular are absolutely wonderful. So a good job for those two today. Post-international, getting your players back, getting that win under your belt, really important for those two. You know, if you'd have seen City drop points this afternoon, it would have given a massive boost. But we're going to that game next Sunday. You know, obviously we're doing that game next Sunday, Martin, and it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And I can't look forward to it from a Manchester United fan's point of view, because it's Liverpool and Manchester City. But what you have to respect as a football fan is the greatness of these two teams, and what we're going to witness next Sunday will be exceptional. It will be a fantastic few weeks of football.
Just a word on Chelsea, the shock result of the month, certainly the weekend, and maybe of some time. Are we seeing the effects of the ownership problems, the sanctions? Is that the first time maybe where there were protests before the game, I understand?
Yeah.
And I mean, Brentford have got something in them that they can produce a result or two like that. They've shown that this season, but even so, 1-4.
Stunned. I was only watching this morning. I was in Qatar the last few days at the World Cup draw. And came back this morning and was catching up with everything, and saw the Thomas Tuchel interview where he was talking about he'd won every game in March and that he wasn't manager of the month, and that Mikel Arteta had lost a game, but he was. And that he said, I'm happy to continue winning every single game and not be manager of the month. And then today, all of a sudden, they lose a game at home. And the protest before the game that we've learnt of this afternoon about the potential Ricketts takeover, there have been movements in the last week, or sort of should be noise in the last week, that the Ricketts bid seems to be the favoured one. It seems to be getting preferential treatment, other bidding parties have suggested. I have to say, we don't know. There is no transparency, there is no independence in English football to be able to determine how you bid for a football club. But
there's no stability at Chelsea, which they have had from the moment Abramovich signed up. But they've had this serene financial time for the best part of 20 years.
They have, and I have to say, if I were the Ricketts family and you're getting that type of hostility on the way in, move away. Move away. The fans are important. And I think if you're managing this bid, and if you're the government at this moment in time, if they've got any say whatsoever in who takes over, I don't know if it's the government that are accepting what happens with the bids, or whether it's Bruce Buck and the sort of the organisation that were appointed by Roman Abramovich. But I would say that really we've got to make sure now that particularly the biggest clubs in the country, we've seen what the Glazer family, here with Manchester United fans. We've seen other examples of where owners have come in unpopular, like Mike Ashley at Newcastle. And it drains the absolute life, not just out of the football club, but out of the city and out of everybody watching, because the energy goes. And that can't happen in a football club. So we've got to make sure, I think, moving forward, that there isn't, it's not just about best bids. It's about what the fans want. And I have to say, the Ricketts family are trying to reach out to Chelsea fans, but they do have some historic issues that need dealing with and need explaining. And actually, at this moment in time, they're not being explained very well. And the Chelsea fans, or if they are being explained, they're not accepting it. And I have to say, that would mean in this current light, with what's happened with Super League, what's happened with Big Picture, what's happened with Derby, what's happened with Bury, what's happened with all these issues with Roman Abramovich and the Ukraine war and Russia and the links to Putin, we have to start bringing back some sort of what would be moral compass when determining who owns a football club. And I have to say, at this moment in time, I find it very difficult to accept that if the Chelsea fans en masse are against the takeover of the family, that are at this moment in time favourites, it should not happen. It should not happen, because I just think that ultimately they have to be listened to. The European Super League clubs, the 6 of them, all said they would listen to fans after the Super League, that they would open their ears, that they would do things differently, they would let fans have a voice. this is the real moment. This is the real crux, because fans can really have a voice in one of the exceptional football clubs in this country, and we'll see whether they really and truly do. But for the players, they've been brilliant in this last 4 or 5 weeks, and for the manager, I think he's been absolutely outstanding, statesman-like. Thomas Tuchel, wonderful. But today's a bad one. It really is a bad one. But it could be a blip. It could be a blip. They've got Real Madrid, I think, on Wednesday, haven't they?
Yeah.
So they've got a big pick-me-up game coming quickly.